Hello, YouTubers here. Joe Kersey, 12:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time on December 8th, Sunday, December 8th, 2013. And here we here we are. There's our back porch there through our back door. Um, we're currently having a little light snow. Not anything to write home about, or for that matter, even mention on YouTube. But uh, the weather hysterions are intimating that this is going to be followed by a little bit of a warm up and maybe some freezing rain here later on tonight, and well, late this afternoon and then into the evening. You know, I don't know. You look at the radar things on the internet, it looks like most of this stuff's going to go south of us. I wouldn't even talk about it, except that my son and daughter-in-law and grandson said they had planned to come up here today, and obviously I don't want them to be driving home on any sort of ice. It's hard enough to get up my driveway with their car that sits about 6 inches off the ground. That's why you need to have a car that sits higher than 6 inches off the ground. So I got up. Well, actually, I woke up at 2:30 this morning and read for a couple hours, and I'm about 2 pages short of finishing the first volume of the 2-volume N.T. Wright book I talked to you about the other day. And he, in the segment I read last night, he's actually now expanding his thesis into Christ's arrival in time changing the very nature of time itself, which is something that it sounds almost as if he discovered this idea as he wrote it. He quotes an Italian fellow that had sort of almost said the same thing in 2006, but clearly it's one of these things that you read and then it percolates and it percolates and it percolates around in your head, and then all of a sudden, I think almost he stuck this in as he was writing this, and what an interesting idea! What a great idea! So he's going to develop that obviously later on. So I'll be interested to see how that works out. Now, today I went to the then I took another nap, about 2-hour nap, and I got up at 6:30, and I figured, well, heck, let's go to the 8 o'clock service. And so I hustled in and got tidied up and wrote the 2 phone bills, the cell phone bill and the AT&T bill, and then I thought, well, I've got enough time. I can go over and buy stuff for the people in need charity, the food drive. And so I went over and bought the thing this month is vegetable soup. Well, they were out of straight vegetable soup, so I bought soups with vegetables in them. They'll just have to be happy with that, because that's all over there. So I did my little bit for that, and then swung up to church, and it seems that the people who were scheduled to read, there's 8 o'clock's very interesting, because they have, they usually have just one reader rather than 2, because you don't really need 2 people to help with communion. Because we have maybe between 20 and 40 people there, rather than between 60 and 80, like we do at 10:30. And but this one family, it's a family that has three guys. Well, they're not boys now. I mean, two of them are grown men, and one's in college. Well, they're both, two of the older ones are in college, and one of them's out on the West Coast, and one of them's here in Columbus, and then you've got the youngest guy who's probably, he's now, he's 15 now. All three of these guys were baptized on the same day, about 2 years after I started going to St. Peter's. And so it's been interesting to watch them grow up and see how they do. And anyway, the oldest guy here in Ohio, he's had various strep throaty infections over the years, and I guess most recently it's become a true, almost upper airway obstructing problem. And as anybody who's ever been involved with people who have septic upper airway or near upper airway obstruction problems know, there are few sicker people in the world that walk into your operating room, and they might look healthy as all get out, but by the time they get to you, they are not. And some of these guys can go down the tubes very, very, very rapidly. So obviously prayers for this guy, and also a little prayer for the anesthesiologist who draws his case, because it sounds like he'll have to be operated on. I don't think they're going to be able to cool this guy off with antibiotics, because that's what they've been trying to do. So once that stuff gets on a roll toward the final downhill slide, by the time they hit the operating room, that's a bit of bad news. And I pray to God that goes all right for them. Okay, well, Charles gave a very, very good sermon. Now today, the gospel was, the Matthew 3, John the Baptist. The axe even now is lying at the root of the tree. You brood of vipers, why are you coming out here? And Charles had a very interesting thesis on this, and I think it merits more examination, because as somebody whose tone is continually misunderstood, or often misunderstood, Charles postulated that John the Baptist's tone about you brood of vipers over the centuries has been misinterpreted. That John the Baptist was saying to the Pharisees and Sadducees that came down to the Jordan River to be baptized, because they were down there to be baptized, why are you here? It's like, oh, why are you here? But Charles's idea was like, wow, why are you here? The implied unspoken part that didn't get recorded is, have you had a change of heart? Very interesting idea. Very well developed. So anyway, Charles had me read in their stead, and just sort of out of the blue, he decided to do Rite 1 rather than Rite 2 today, which there's been a certain amount of lobbying, certainly among the 8 o'clock people, to do Rite 1, and Charles has steadfastly resisted doing Rite 1 for, I think, for polemical reasons, primarily. For example, you often hear some people in the Diocese of Southern Ohio say, I'll never do Rite 1 again over my dead body, that sort of stuff. Anyway, so we did Rite 1 today, which was interesting, and I actually had to use the prayer book on this one, because I don't have that one memorized, because I've only done it, 10 times, 12 times in my life. So it takes me a few more times a few more than 12 times through something to memorize it. So. But the scripture readings I'd done many times before, so that was okay. And but as I say, when I'm up there doing it, that's not me up there doing it. Didn't fall off the stool. That was good. So that was church this morning, and then got home safely, and the house was safe, and so I'm waiting to see here if Thomas and Carter and Kelly show up. I'll hear one way later on. So. Okay. How do you like all the background noise of all the heaters? Well, I have to like the background noise of all the heaters because if they weren't on, I'd just have to be somewhere else. See, there's one of the culprits. I shouldn't call them culprits. They're very wonderful things.